AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she assigned me a bridesmaid role without asking. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Lily, 32F. We grew up in a household that placed a huge emphasis on appearances and keeping up with social expectations. Lily has always been the perfect daughter in the eyes of our parents. Successful, poised, charismatic, and, in her words, the one who gets things right. I've always been more introverted, a bit of a mess at times, and never quite fit into the mold she thrives in. Our relationship has been fine for the most part, but underlying tension has always existed, mostly stemming from comparisons during our childhood. Lily got engaged about a year ago. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. But soon after the engagement announcement, I noticed her starting to organize her wedding in a very controlling way. She has a tendency to be extremely particular, and her fiancé, Sam, 34M, seems very easygoing, so he mostly just went along with whatever Lily wanted. That's fine. People have their preferences, I get it. But things started escalating when she casually assigned me a role as one of her bridesmaids without ever asking me if I was comfortable with it. I found out through our group chat with the other bridesmaids. Lily wrote something like, "Excited to have my girls by my side. Can't wait for my name to stand with me as my bridesmaid." I was stunned because she had never once asked me if I wanted to be a bridesmaid or if I could commit to all the responsibilities that come with it. I've always been uncomfortable with large social obligations, don't really enjoy planning events or coordinating outfits, and don't like being in the spotlight. Being a bridesmaid is something I had never imagined doing, and suddenly it was being imposed on me. I tried to gently address it. I messaged her privately, saying I appreciated being thought of, but that I was not comfortable taking on the role. I explained that being a bridesmaid involved a lot of commitments, both emotionally and financially, and I didn't feel I could manage that, especially considering my current work schedule and personal boundaries. I expected a reasonable conversation. Instead, she completely lost it. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and the one person who always ruins everything for me. She started sending multiple messages daily about how disappointed she was, how hurt she felt, and how I was making her wedding harder than it had to be. At first, I tried to remain calm and reiterated my boundaries, but she escalated further. She called our parents and complained that I was being dramatic and that I was breaking her heart by refusing to be a bridesmaid. Our parents, predictably, guilted me into reconsidering, though they didn't outright force me. I briefly considered compromising, maybe taking on a lesser role like usher or just attending without being in the bridal party. But then she started posting pictures on social media with captions like, "So sad my sister won't be standing with me on my big day," and "family first," or so I thought. The passive-aggressive posts made it very clear that this was no longer about her wedding. It was about her controlling narrative and public image. Finally, after a week of escalating tension, I made my decision. I would not be attending the wedding at all. I sent her a long message explaining that I could not, in good conscience, participate under these circumstances, that I loved her and wished her happiness, but that I could not prioritize her wedding over my own mental health and personal boundaries. I also explained that her method of assigning me a role without asking and then guilt-tripping me was unacceptable. The fallout was immediate and intense. Lily responded with anger, calling me the worst sister ever, immature, and heartless. She told our parents that I had cut her out completely and that I had no respect for family. Several mutual friends reached out, trying to mediate, but I stuck to my stance. Over the next few weeks, the conflict escalated. Lily's wedding is coming up in 2 months, and she has continued posting passive-aggressive messages online about family drama and people who can't support their loved ones. She even tried to convince my close friends to talk to me, saying I was hurting everyone by not participating. I've been blocked and unblocked multiple times, and at one point, she sent a message implying that our relationship might be permanently over if I didn't attend. My parents are in the middle. They haven't outright told me I'm wrong, but they've repeatedly expressed disappointment and suggested that my refusal is selfish. My friends are supportive of my decision, acknowledging that the pressure Lily is putting on me is unreasonable. I've tried to reach out to Lily multiple times with calm, rational messages, but she either ignores me or responds with hostility. I'm now in a strange position where I'm getting guilt by almost everyone in the family for standing up for myself. I genuinely love my sister and want her to be happy, but I also cannot compromise my boundaries to the point where I feel manipulated and pressured. I feel like she is prioritizing appearances and control over the actual relationship she has with me. I don't want to burn bridges, but I also don't want to be made to feel responsible for her emotional state or for ruining her wedding. I've considered attending in a neutral capacity, just as a guest, but even that feels like it would be seen as me giving in to guilt rather than a genuine choice. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she effectively assigned me a bridesmaid role without asking and then guilt-tripped me when I declined. I'm aware this is a sensitive time, but I also feel like my mental health and boundaries matter. I'm prepared for the possibility of family fallout, but I also want to understand if I am truly being unreasonable here. Has anyone experienced something similar with siblings or weddings where boundaries clash with family expectations? How do you navigate this without completely losing the relationship? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she banned my partner from the guest list. I, 28F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emma, 25F. We grew up inseparable, but things got a bit rocky once I started dating my partner, Jordan, 30M. Jordan and Emma have never really gotten along, though it's mostly been because of differing personalities rather than anything serious. Jordan is introverted, sarcastic, and tends to make jokes that not everyone gets, while Emma is very social, detail-oriented, and has a very particular idea of how people should behave at gatherings. It hasn't caused huge issues until recently, but I'll get to that. About 6 months ago, Emma got engaged to her fiancé, Ben, 27M. She was over the moon and immediately started planning what she described as the perfect wedding. She asked me to help with some of the planning, which I happily agreed to. I assumed that this was going to be one of those moments where we could bond over all the wedding chaos and excitement. Things were fine at first, until she announced her guest list rules. She told me that she didn't want any guests bringing partners unless they had been dating for at least 3 years. Now, Jordan and I have been together for just over 2 years. I was surprised and confused because she had invited nearly everyone else's partners, including people she had known dating for only a few months. When I asked why she was making this rule, she said it was because she wanted to avoid drama at her wedding, and she was worried that Jordan and Ben might not mesh well. I was frustrated, but I thought maybe she was overthinking it, so I let it slide. Then things got worse. About a month ago, Emma informed me that she had decided Jordan could not attend at all. She said that Ben had expressed discomfort around him and that she didn't want to risk any arguments on her big day. She insisted that I could come alone or with a friend, but Jordan absolutely could not be there. She framed it as being about the wedding atmosphere rather than personal issues, but it felt very pointed. I tried to explain that Jordan wouldn't cause problems and that I didn't understand why she was singling him out. She said it was final and that I needed to respect her decision. I spent the next few weeks trying to talk to her calmly. I reminded her that weddings are meant to celebrate love and family, not create tension by excluding people who matter to you. I told her it hurt that she was willing to invite dozens of acquaintances and distant relatives, but not my partner of over 2 years. Emma responded by saying I was overreacting and that I was choosing Jordan over her happiness. I felt cornered, and I couldn't make her see my side. The situation came to a head last week when I told her I couldn't attend without Jordan. I tried to compromise by suggesting that Jordan keep a low profile, not interact much with certain people, or sit at a different table. She wouldn't budge. She said attending without him would make me a good sister, but attending with him would make me selfish and inconsiderate. I was floored. I couldn't imagine celebrating one of the most important days of my sister's life while pretending that the person I love didn't exist. After a long night of thinking, I wrote her an email explaining that I wouldn't be attending the wedding unless Jordan was allowed. I told her I was devastated, but that I couldn't participate in an event that required me to exclude someone so central to my life. I also mentioned that I hoped she understood my position and that I still wanted her happiness, but I couldn't compromise on this. I didn't want to start a fight, so I kept the tone as gentle as I could. Her response was curt. She said she was disappointed and that I had made my choice. She also sent a group text to other family members stating that she was sad I wouldn't be attending, but didn't mention Jordan at all. Now, my parents are upset. They've been trying to mediate, saying I should just go and be happy for her, even if I don't agree with the decision. My dad keeps reminding me that weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events and that families should prioritize them over personal grievances. My mom, on the other hand, keeps hinting that I'm being too stubborn and that I should just make it work for the sake of family unity. I feel torn. Part of me thinks that I'm doing the right thing by standing up for my relationship and refusing to be treated unfairly. But another part of me feels guilty for potentially missing my sister's wedding and upsetting my parents. Jordan has been incredibly supportive, but he also worries that this situation is damaging my relationship with Emma permanently. Some of our mutual friends have told me that I should go without him, just to keep the peace, while others insist that not attending at all is a perfectly reasonable boundary. I've spent nights replaying conversations, trying to see if I could have done something differently, but every compromise I offered was rejected. Emma has made it clear that she doesn't want Jordan there, and I don't want to attend without him. I love my sister and want her to have a beautiful day, but I also can't ignore that she's excluding my partner for reasons that feel arbitrary and unfair. I'm worried that I'm going to be remembered as the bad sister, or that this will permanently hurt our relationship. I also don't want to be manipulated into attending and feeling resentful the whole time. I know this is a situation where there aren't any perfect answers, but I want to understand if my decision makes me an asshole in any way. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she banned my partner? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I, 28F, have always been close with my sister, Laura, 31F. Growing up, we were basically inseparable, and I have fond memories of our childhood and teenage years. When Laura got engaged last year to her fiancé, Matt, 32M, I was happy for her at first. I didn't know him well at that point, but from what I'd seen, he seemed nice enough. However, over the past year, I've had several experiences with him that have made me really uncomfortable, and it's caused tension between us. It all started when Laura and I were helping her plan the wedding. Matt has a habit of making little jokes that are borderline insulting, especially towards me. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe he was just awkward and didn't realize what he was saying. But the comments kept coming. He would make sarcastic remarks about my job. I work in marketing, which is totally fine for me, my lifestyle, and even my clothes. I tried talking to Laura about it gently, explaining that I felt uncomfortable with some of the things he said, but she laughed it off and told me I was being too sensitive. A few months ago, things escalated. Laura and Matt invited me to a small dinner with a few other family members. During the dinner, Matt kept interrupting me and making jokes at my expense. At one point, he openly criticized my cooking when I brought a dish to share, saying something like, "Wow, that's bold. Did you burn on purpose?" Everyone laughed, including Laura. I tried to brush it off, but I left the dinner feeling humiliated. After that, I started avoiding situations where I would have to be around Matt. I figured maybe I could still support Laura from a distance. However, things got worse when Laura started asking me to be involved in the wedding planning. She wanted me to help choose decorations, plan the bachelorette party, and even be part of the bridal party. Every time I tried to discuss boundaries or suggest my own ideas, Matt would roll his eyes, make sarcastic comments, or outright dismiss me. Laura kept saying I was overreacting and that Matt was just joking. The tipping point came last month. Laura asked me to come to a meeting with the wedding planner where Matt would be present. I agreed reluctantly. During the meeting, I suggested a few ideas for the reception layout, but Matt immediately shut them down and made a comment about how I clearly didn't understand the concept of elegance. I felt humiliated in front of the planner. Later that evening, Laura called me, crying, saying that Matt was upset with me for not being supportive enough and that I needed to get over it or step aside. I tried to explain how hurtful his behavior was, but she just said, "You're making this about you again. This wedding is about us." I realized at that point that being involved in the wedding would mean putting myself in uncomfortable, disrespectful situations repeatedly. I love my sister, but I cannot support someone who treats me this way. I made the difficult decision to decline being part of the wedding entirely. I told Laura that I would attend the ceremony itself, but I could not participate in the planning or festivities leading up to it. Laura was furious. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and trying to ruin her special day. She said that Matt has a temper, and if I didn't participate, it would cause tension between them, and by extension, the family. Our parents called me as well, saying I was being unreasonable and needed to put my feelings aside for my sister's happiness. I explained to them that I wasn't trying to sabotage anything. I just couldn't be around Matt without feeling hurt or belittled. They insisted that I was overreacting and that I should just suck it up. Since then, my relationship with Laura has become strained. She has sent me passive-aggressive messages and posted about the wedding on social media in ways that make me feel excluded. I feel torn because I genuinely love my sister, but I also know that being around Matt is emotionally exhausting and harmful to me. Some friends say I'm justified and that I should protect my boundaries, while others say I'm being dramatic and selfish. I want to be supportive of my sister, but I also don't want to enable behavior that makes me uncomfortable. I'm struggling with guilt and feeling like maybe I should just push through to keep the peace, but every time I think about being around Matt for the wedding planning or bridal events, I feel anxiety and dread. AITA for refusing to be involved in my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. Character count, 6,431 if you want. I can also create an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters with more detailed interactions and family drama. It would read even more like a viral Reddit post. Do you want to do that? AITA for refusing to accommodate my sister's unusual request at my wedding and now facing backlash from my family. I, 32F, am currently engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 34M, and we've been planning our wedding for about a year. For context, I have a younger sister, Laura, 27F, who has always been somewhat of a free spirit. She's talented, funny, and generally a kind person, but she's also extremely particular about how she wants things done and has a habit of imposing her preferences on everyone around her. Over the years, this has caused tension in subtle ways, but we've mostly managed to navigate it. That all came to a head during our wedding planning. A couple of months ago, Laura approached me with an unusual request. She wanted to perform a spiritual ritual during the wedding ceremony. According to her, it was something she learned while traveling abroad and was meant to bless the union and protect our future happiness. Initially, I was curious and tried to be open-minded. She explained that the ritual involved her setting up a small altar with candles, crystals, incense, and some personal items of ours, like a piece of Mark's clothing and a lock of my hair. She insisted it was harmless, but she wanted it incorporated into the ceremony before we exchanged vows. I told her that while I appreciated her wanting to be involved, I wasn't comfortable with it. Our wedding is very traditional, with a formal ceremony at a church and a reception at a banquet hall, and I didn't want to introduce a ritual that wasn't part of the officiant's plan. I also didn't feel right giving her personal items like a lock of my hair or Mark's clothing to use in a ritual, especially since it sounded like it was meant to invoke some kind of spiritual power. I explained all this calmly, and she was visibly upset but said she would think about it. A few weeks later, she came back with a compromise. She wanted to do the ritual privately in a separate room at the venue while guests were arriving, and then she would leave everything behind. She promised it wouldn't affect the ceremony itself. I thought about it, but I still felt uneasy. The idea of her setting up candles and incense in a room with flammable materials, plus the possibility of it disrupting the venue schedule or making guests uncomfortable if they found out, was too much. I told her politely that I still couldn't allow it, and that she could participate in other ways, helping with the decorations, giving a toast, or being in the bridal party, but not the ritual. She got very defensive. She started texting me almost every day, reminding me of how she has always been there for me and how selfish it was to deny her the opportunity to bless my marriage. She even suggested that if I went through with the wedding without allowing it, our relationship would be permanently damaged. At this point, I started feeling stressed because wedding planning is already a lot, and this was becoming a constant source of tension. About a week ago, the situation escalated. Laura came over uninvited, carrying her ritual items, and tried to set up in my living room while I was discussing final seating charts with Mark. She said that if I loved her, I would let her do this. I was firm and asked her to leave. She left, slamming the door and sending a long, accusatory text to both me and our parents, saying that I was being controlling, disrespectful, and ungrateful. Now, my parents are upset with me. They say I should compromise to avoid family drama, and that refusing her is making her look like a villain. My extended family has also gotten involved, with some members subtly hinting at how I shouldn't let Laura feel left out on my special day. Mark is supportive of me, saying that I'm right to set boundaries, but he also admits he's worried about how this will affect family dynamics in the long run. I've tried explaining that boundaries are important and that while I love Laura, this is my wedding and I get to decide what happens during it. But the backlash is intense. Laura has even told some family members that I'm emotionally abusive for denying her a ritual she believes is spiritually significant, and I can feel the tension every time I interact with relatives. The thing is, I don't think what I'm asking is unreasonable. The ritual feels very personal and spiritual in a way that I'm not comfortable with, and it involves items and actions that I'm not okay with giving permission for. I'm also worried about safety and logistics, which seems like a reasonable concern for any wedding. Yet, I'm now the bad sister in the eyes of my family, and some people are hinting that I should cancel the wedding altogether if I can't make Laura happy. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister perform her ritual at my wedding, even privately? Or should I just give in to avoid family conflict, even though it makes me uncomfortable and stressed? AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he embarrassed me in front of my entire family? So, I, 32F, have a younger brother, Jake, 28M, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, our parents were very clearly more lenient with him, so I often felt like I had to work harder to earn their approval. I made peace with it mostly, but our dynamic has always been tense. A few years ago, I started dating someone seriously, Alex, 34M, and we moved in together. Things were going really well, and I finally felt like I had my own life outside of the family chaos. Jake has been dating his girlfriend, Lily, for about 6 years. They got engaged last year, and from the start, my parents were super involved in the wedding planning, which is fine because my family loves to throw big events. Here's where things started to go south. Jake sent me a message about 6 months ago, kind of out of the blue, saying he expected me to chip in for the wedding. I was taken aback because I had literally no idea I was supposed to contribute financially. I asked what he meant, and he said that since I live comfortably and have a stable job, it's only fair I pay for part of the catering and decorations. I told him I wasn't comfortable paying for someone else's wedding and that it seemed unfair. He got annoyed and said I was being selfish. We didn't really talk about it again, but I assumed he had just been venting. Fast forward to last month. The wedding was held at a fancy venue, and I drove there with Alex. I had spent a lot of time and effort picking out a dress and getting ready, and I wanted it to be a fun day. Everything was going fine until the ceremony started. Jake had made a little speech about how grateful he was to his generous sister for helping with the wedding costs. I was sitting there in shock, and Alex had to nudge me to make sure I hadn't heard wrong. My name was basically being used to publicly shame me in front of 150 people. I was mortified. My parents looked surprised, and I could tell some relatives were whispering. I wanted to leave immediately, but I stayed because I didn't want to cause a scene. During the reception, Jake kept making small jabs like, "Thanks again for making this possible," and "Can't believe my sister pulled through." I realized that he had clearly been expecting me to pay without ever asking me directly in a proper conversation, and now he was making it look like I had some kind of moral obligation. When we got home, I was furious. I texted him asking why he would publicly embarrass me like that. His response was basically, "I just assumed you'd want to help out. It's not like I forced you to come." He said that I should feel proud for contributing, even if I didn't give money because I showed up, which honestly made me feel even more insulted. I decided that I wouldn't respond beyond that point, and I made it clear to my parents that I wasn't contributing financially to the wedding. Now, my parents are upset with me, saying I should have helped my brother, and that I should have just paid to avoid drama. I tried explaining that I had been publicly shamed and that contributing money now feels like rewarding that behavior, but they think I'm overreacting. Even Alex thinks I'm right for being upset. He said that no one should expect you to pay for their wedding, and definitely no one should embarrass you in front of your family like that. But my parents keep bringing it up in family calls, saying that I've ruined family harmony and that I'm being petty. My extended family is now split. Some relatives agree with me, saying Jake was completely out of line, while others are saying I should have handled it differently and contributed quietly. My brother hasn't apologized. He just keeps saying I'm overly sensitive and that he was just joking. I honestly feel like my parents are taking his side because he's the youngest, and I'm not sure what to do. I've blocked him from texting me for now because every message feels like guilt tripping. I don't want to cause more drama, but at the same time, I don't want to just quietly pay for something that was used to humiliate me. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he embarrassed me in front of our entire family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a years-long feud over something she doesn't even remember. So, this is going to be long, but I need to lay out all the context because this is complicated. I, 29F, and my sister, let's call her Emma, 31F, have had a rocky relationship for years, but it's always seemed manageable until recently. Growing up, Emma was the perfect child in my parents' eyes. Straight A's, the athlete, social butterfly, while I was the weird one who liked art, reading, and generally avoiding social events. Our relationship wasn't exactly abusive or anything, but she got a lot of favoritism, which is something that I think shaped a lot of resentment in me that I didn't fully understand until recently. Fast forward to adulthood. We both live in different cities now, and I've managed to mostly avoid conflict with her. Our relationship has been polite, mostly distant, and family gatherings have been tolerable, if a little awkward. My parents, however, have always loved to make comparisons between us, which I've tried to shrug off, but it always stung. Emma recently got engaged to a man named Derek, and while I was happy for her, I was also worried because Derek is, well, difficult. He's the kind of person who makes everything about him, has a temper, and enjoys being charming in public, but controlling behind closed doors. My parents, of course, adore him. The real conflict started about 6 months ago. I was visiting my parents, and we were all sitting around the living room when Emma brought up a family vacation we took when I was about 14. She mentioned it casually, laughing, and said, "Remember that time you made me cry because you refused to let me borrow your notebook? You were such a brat." I blinked. I had no memory of this, and when I asked her for details, she said I had refused her notebook during a family game and apparently threw a tantrum, which made her cry. I was confused because I honestly don't remember this at all, but she seemed genuinely hurt. I tried to apologize, even though I genuinely didn't remember it, and said, "I don't remember that, but I'm sorry you were upset." She accepted it in the moment, but after that, every time I visited, she would casually bring it up, sometimes as a joke, sometimes in a serious tone, and it started to feel like she was using it to guilt me. I tried to let it go, thinking, fine, maybe she's been holding on to this memory and it matters to her. But then she started dragging it into conversations with other family members. My parents would laugh and say, "Oh yes, your sister still remembers that." And I felt cornered. Then came the big moment. Emma called me a month ago and said, "I really want you at the wedding, but I also want to know you're going to acknowledge our past. I don't want you to be passive about it." I asked her what she meant, and she said I need to publicly admit that I hurt her as a child. I tried to explain that I didn't remember it, that I'm sorry she felt hurt, but she was insistent that I needed to say the words exactly the way she wanted. I told her I wasn't comfortable doing that because it's not something I remember, and I don't think it's fair to me to perform an apology for something I can't recall and may not have happened in the way she remembers. She got extremely upset and said that my refusal meant I didn't care about her feelings and that it was disrespectful not to show up. I said that I do care, but I also feel manipulated, and I can't participate in something that feels performative and false. She then sent me a long text about how our entire family has sided with her because I'm making her wedding about myself. I ended up calling my mom to try to mediate, and she said that Emma is very hurt and that it's important family tradition for siblings to apologize publicly for past grievances, and that I should just do it so there isn't tension at the wedding. I told my mom I can't do that, and she got visibly frustrated and said I was being stubborn and selfish. My dad said nothing, but shot me a look that made me feel guilty. After that, I told Emma that I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I offered to meet up privately later to talk and to celebrate with her in some way after the wedding, but she refused and said that my absence would confirm that I don't care about family and that I've always been selfish. My parents are extremely disappointed, and my extended family is taking sides. Some of them texted me saying I should just go to keep the peace, and others said I did the right thing for myself. Since I said no, Emma has gone silent. My parents have stopped inviting me to family events, and the tension is unbearable. I genuinely feel like I'm being asked to apologize for something I don't remember and may not have even been significant, just to make her feel good in public. I understand that weddings are emotionally charged, but I can't bring myself to participate in something that makes me feel gaslit. I'm starting to feel like the one who's wrong here because my refusal is causing family drama and my sister is hurt. But I also feel like if I go and say words I don't mean, it would be dishonest and would make me resent her forever. I'm stuck in this horrible position where everyone is telling me I need to sacrifice my principles for family harmony, and I don't know if I can. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding over an issue from childhood that she insists I apologize for, even though I don't remember it, and feel pressure to perform an apology I can't genuinely give. AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding after she caused a huge scene at my engagement party. So a bit of background. I, 28F, got engaged to my fiancé, Mark 30M, about 6 months ago. We've been together for almost 5 years, and we've always known we wanted a small, intimate wedding with only close family and friends. I have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who has always been complicated. She's bright and funny, but she has a tendency to overreact and throw tantrums when things don't go her way. My parents always coddle her, which doesn't help. When Mark and I got engaged, we threw a small engagement party at my parents' house. It was a casual thing, around 20 people, just drinks, some appetizers, and a few speeches. Everything was going fine until Emily arrived. She was late and immediately started making passive-aggressive comments about the decorations, the food, and even the music. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just tired or stressed, but then things escalated. About halfway through the party, Emily noticed that Mark and I had set aside a small table with photos of our families and our life together so far. She demanded to know why her photos weren't included. I explained that the table wasn't meant to exclude anyone. It was just a personal display. But she kept raising her voice, saying things like, "You don't value me at all," and "This is so unfair. I'm your sister." People were starting to stare, and my parents were trying to calm her down, but she wouldn't listen. Then she did something that completely crossed the line. She grabbed the microphone we had for speeches and started ranting about how I had always favored our cousin over her, how she had been left out of family events, and how this engagement party proved that I was never going to consider her feelings. She wouldn't stop until my mom finally took the microphone from her, and by that point, she had made everyone uncomfortable and some guests were even crying. Mark was furious but trying to stay calm, and I was mortified. After the party, Emily refused to apologize. She said I was being overly sensitive and that I ruined her night by not letting her take over the party. My parents were upset with me for being harsh and not understanding Emily, but I honestly felt like she had completely embarrassed me and Mark in front of our closest friends and family. Fast forward a few weeks, I started planning the wedding. From the beginning, it was clear that I wanted it to be small. I invited about 50 people, including immediate family and a few close friends. When the wedding invitations are going out, I didn't include Emily. My reasoning was simple. After the engagement party, I didn't trust her to behave respectfully at another important family event, and I didn't want my wedding day to be overshadowed by her drama. I also discussed it with Mark, who fully supported my decision. When Emily found out she wasn't invited, she blew up. She called me multiple times, left dozens of texts, and even showed up at my parents' house demanding to know why she wasn't invited. She said I was being cruel and that I was cutting her out of my life. My parents were furious with me at first. They said I was too harsh and should forgive her for one mistake. I tried to explain that it wasn't a one-time mistake, it was a pattern, and I didn't feel safe having her at my wedding. Things got more intense when Emily started messaging Mark directly, accusing him of supporting my cruelty and trying to manipulate me into ignoring her feelings. Mark blocked her after a particularly nasty message where she called him every insult in the book. The situation reached its peak a week before the wedding when Emily sent my parents a long, dramatic email detailing all the ways she felt betrayed and left out. She copied some extended family members, which caused more tension. My parents ended up calling me to say they wanted Emily invited after all, or they wouldn't attend the wedding. I refused. I felt like if I gave in now, it would only teach her that tantrums get her what she wants. We went ahead with the wedding without her. It was beautiful, low stress, and exactly what Mark and I wanted. Most of our family and friends commented on how relaxed and joyful the day was. My parents did attend, although it was clear they were still upset with me. Emily didn't attend, obviously, and hasn't really spoken to me since. Now, a few months later, my parents keep asking me if I'm willing to reconsider inviting Emily to any future family events. Some extended family members have also commented that I was too harsh and that Emily didn't mean any harm. I understand they see her as the victim, but from my perspective, she actively tried to ruin my engagement celebration and refuses to take any responsibility for her actions. So, Reddit, AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding after she made such a scene at my engagement party? Or am I justified in protecting my wedding day from her drama? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 28F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up in a relatively small town, and we've always been each other's confidants. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and Emily was 9, so we leaned on each other a lot. Over the years, I've tried to be there for her through everything: bad relationships, breakups, work stress, and even her decision to drop out of college for a job that ultimately didn't work out. We have our occasional disagreements like any siblings, but I always thought our bond was strong. A year ago, Emily introduced me to her now fiancé, Jake, 27M. At first, I was cautiously optimistic. Jake seemed polite and fun at casual gatherings, but I started noticing some behaviors that made me uncomfortable. He has a very controlling streak that he seems to hide well in public, but shows in private conversations. For instance, Emily would text me about arguments they had over small things, like what she wore, who she spoke to at work, or what kind of lunch she brought to work. I try to be supportive, but also neutral because I didn't want to come between them. However, over time, his behavior escalated. About 6 months ago, Emily started confiding in me more regularly. She told me that Jake had been monitoring her phone, checking her messages, and insisting on knowing where she was at all times. She seemed torn. Part of her wanted to leave, but part of her was afraid of causing drama or losing him. I tried to encourage her to set boundaries and even suggested couples therapy, but she insisted she loved him and thought she could handle it. Fast forward to 3 months ago, Emily got engaged. When she asked me to be her maid of honor, I was honored but also hesitant because of the tension I had started noticing between her and Jake. At the time, I decided to focus on being supportive and keeping my concerns private unless she specifically asked for advice. Things really escalated when we started planning the wedding. Jake took over almost everything, from the guest list to the catering, insisting that Emily follow his ideas exactly. Emily tried to compromise a few times, but Jake would get frustrated and dismiss her choices. Then he started pushing me into roles I didn't want. For example, he insisted that I handle certain aspects of the wedding because I'm organized and Emily can't handle stress, which felt like he was undermining Emily and putting pressure on me. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Emily called me crying because Jake had insisted she cancel the rehearsal dinner I had planned for her friends and family. She said he didn't want people who weren't family there and that he didn't want her to spend money on things he considered unnecessary. I tried to comfort her and suggested we could find a compromise, like a smaller dinner, but she seemed paralyzed and didn't want to confront him. Later that day, Jake sent me a text, completely unprompted, telling me that I should stop influencing Emily and let her focus on her future with him. I was furious. I felt like he was trying to isolate her and control me, too. I called Emily immediately and told her that I couldn't support the wedding if Jake continued this behavior, because I felt like it was emotionally abusive. I explained that I loved her and wanted to be there for her, but I could not stand by and participate in what I felt was a toxic situation. Emily begged me, saying that she would handle him and that it would mean the world to her if I were there. I told her I understood, but I needed to prioritize my mental health and could not attend unless she set boundaries with him. Since then, the family has been divided. My parents think I'm overreacting and that I should put aside my feelings for one day for Emily. Emily has been upset with me, calling me selfish and saying that I'm choosing him over her. A few friends have reached out, some agreeing with me and others saying I should just play nice for the wedding. My friends who know Jake's behavior support me and think I'm making the right call by not participating. I know that I might be seen as dramatic, and part of me feels guilty because I do want to support my sister, but I also can't ignore what I perceive as manipulative and controlling behavior. I'm also aware that Emily is an adult and can make her own decisions, but I don't feel comfortable being part of an event that, to me, feels like it's being orchestrated to diminish her autonomy and happiness. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded my kids from the ceremony. I, 38F, have 2 kids, ages 8 and 5, from my previous marriage. My sister, Emily, 35F, is getting married in about 2 months. We've always had a bit of a rocky relationship. She's the golden child in the family, and I've often felt overlooked, but I've never let that stop me from being there for her milestones. When Emily got engaged last year, she immediately started planning a very small wedding. I don't think she wanted more than 30 guests, and she was clear from the start that this was going to be a very intimate ceremony. I respected that, even though I had my doubts about how it would play out with our extended family. About 2 months ago, Emily called me and said she had made some final decisions about the guest list. I was happy to hear that I and my kids were invited, but then she added, just a heads up, the ceremony is adults only, so your kids won't be able to come. They can attend the reception afterward, but only for dinner. I was taken aback. I understand adult-only weddings exist, but Emily knows my kids are a huge part of my life, and I can't just drop them off at home or with a babysitter for the ceremony. It would mean hours of them being separated from me, which they can't handle emotionally. On top of that, the ceremony is going to be in the afternoon, and the reception will start almost immediately after. That means I would essentially be attending the wedding alone while my kids are at home or with someone else. I tried to reason with Emily, telling her that I didn't think it was fair to exclude them, especially since we were traveling from out of state. I suggested that we could make some arrangements. Maybe they could sit with close family members or even be quiet in the back, or we could do a very short part of the ceremony where they could attend. Emily was firm. She said she wanted a child-free ceremony and that inviting them would disrupt the atmosphere she's trying to create. At this point, I realized this was going to be a bigger issue than I expected. I explained to her that if my kids weren't welcome at the ceremony, I wouldn't be able to attend at all. I offered to come just for the reception if she insisted on the adults-only rule, but she said she wanted all the adult guests present at the ceremony to enjoy themselves without distractions, which felt like a direct dismissal of my family. We argued for about an hour on the phone. She accused me of holding my kids hostage and making her wedding about me, and I accused her of being selfish and inconsiderate. I reminded her that this is my life too, and my kids are part of it, but she didn't budge. I ended up calling my parents to vent. My dad said he understood both sides, but leaned slightly toward Emily, saying that she has the right to plan her wedding how she wants. My mom, however, supported me and said Emily was being unreasonable. My husband also thinks Emily is in the wrong, saying that a wedding isn't just about the bride. It's about family coming together. Since that conversation, I've been trying to negotiate again, suggesting a compromise like my kids attending the first 10 minutes of the ceremony or having a small role like flower girl and ring bearer. Emily refuses. I also offered to have a babysitter at the venue so the kids could still be there without being disruptive, but she said no. At this point, I feel hurt and frustrated. I'm genuinely considering skipping the wedding altogether, even though I know it will upset my parents and possibly create a bigger rift with Emily. I feel like I shouldn't have to choose between my children and attending my sister's wedding. On the other hand, I know weddings are important to brides and I understand the need for certain boundaries. I've talked to a few friends, and the reactions are mixed. Some say I'm overreacting and should just leave the kids with someone else, while others say Emily is being selfish and inconsiderate. My husband and I have decided that if my kids can't attend the ceremony, we won't be going at all. The problem is that this is causing tension not only with Emily, but also with my extended family. My aunt told me I'm being dramatic and that kids are used to being excluded sometimes, and my dad is worried about family unity. I feel torn because I don't want to make things worse, but I also can't compromise on my kids' exclusion. I'm wondering if I'm the asshole here for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because my kids aren't welcome at the ceremony. I feel like it's a principled stance to show my kids they are a priority to me, but I can't shake the feeling that I might be overreacting and letting my pride get in the way of my relationship with my sister. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded my kids from the ceremony? Character count, 6,309 if you want. I can write another story that pushes closer to 7,000 characters, adding more family drama and side plot tension, which tends to perform well on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to help my brother financially after he refused to help me when I was struggling. So this is going to be long because I need to lay out all the context, but I'll try to be as clear as possible. I, 32F, have a younger brother, Mike, 28M, and our relationship has always been complicated. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but our personalities clash a lot. I've always been the more responsible one when it comes to money, planning, and life decisions, while Mike is more spontaneous and sometimes reckless. My parents never really played favorites, but they also never really taught him how to manage money. So, as adults, it's always been a source of tension. About 2 years ago, I went through a really rough period. I had lost my job unexpectedly, and on top of that, my car broke down and I was dealing with some health problems. I didn't qualify for much in unemployment or assistance at the time, so I ended up asking my family for help. I was very clear that it would be a loan. I intended to pay them back as soon as I could. I reached out to Mike, hoping that he could lend me some money because we were always told in the family that siblings should help each other. He flat out refused. He said he couldn't help me because he didn't have extra money and that it wasn't his responsibility. My parents helped me out in small ways, but Mike was distant and dismissive. Fast forward to now. Mike recently bought a house with his girlfriend. They're obviously doing well financially, and he's been posting about vacations, expensive furniture, and other luxuries on social media. Around the same time, my car broke down again. I don't have a lot of savings because I've been paying off medical bills and trying to catch up on rent. So I asked him if he could help me with a short-term loan to get a car repaired so I could get to work. I explained that I would pay him back as soon as possible, just like I would with anyone. His response was infuriating. He said that he wasn't a bank and that he couldn't just hand me money because I needed it. He added that he didn't think it was fair for me to ask, considering he had asked me for help when he had a tough year a few years ago, and I had helped him, while he had refused to help me when I really needed it. He said he didn't want to get into family drama, but that he didn't think he should give me money just because I was asking. I tried to remind him of the difference in our situations. His financial hardship years ago was short-term and manageable for him, whereas my current situation is more precarious. The conversation escalated. He accused me of being entitled and of expecting him to fix my problems. I reminded him that family is supposed to help each other, especially when someone is truly in need, and that I had helped him before without complaint. He then said that he remembered when I had asked for help 2 years ago, and that he hadn't forgotten that, and that he didn't appreciate being reminded. This felt like a slap in the face because at the time, his refusal didn't bother him enough to affect our relationship, and now it's being used as a reason not to help me when he clearly can. I ended up telling him that I wasn't going to continue arguing and that I would figure something out on my own. I started a fundraiser online, borrowed a smaller amount from another relative, and got my car fixed. It worked out, but the tension with Mike has been unbearable. He refuses to talk to me beyond short, polite texts. My parents are disappointed in me because they think I should have been more understanding of his decision. My friends say I did nothing wrong, that Mike's behavior was selfish and hypocritical. The worst part is that Mike has started posting about all the things he's spending money on, which makes me feel like he just doesn't care that I was in a genuine bind. I'm also worried because I thought that, even if we weren't close, siblings should have each other's back in times of need. I can't help but feel betrayed. Some of our extended family has caught wind of the argument, and now some are quietly taking sides, which makes holidays and family gatherings stressful. I don't want to cause a scene, but I also don't want to pretend everything is fine with Mike when I feel like he's treating me unfairly. I've considered cutting contact for a while, but I'm conflicted because I feel like it shouldn't have come to that if he had just acted like a decent human being. So, AITA for refusing to beg my brother for money when he clearly has the means to help, even though he helped me years ago and now refuses to reciprocate? Or am I wrong for expecting him to treat me like family in a time of real need? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he insulted my cooking? I, 32F, have always loved hosting family gatherings. I live in a moderately sized city apartment, and I've been living here alone for the past 5 years. My sister, Claire, 30F, recently got engaged to a guy named Jason, 33M. I'll admit I don't know him very well, but he always seemed polite enough in the short interactions I've had with him. My problem started when Claire asked me if Jason could stay at my place for a few days while they were in town for a wedding. I said yes at first because I thought it would be fine for a couple of nights, and I genuinely like helping my family when I can. Claire and Jason arrived on a Thursday evening. I had cooked a big dinner, thinking it would be nice to sit down and catch up. When I served the food, Jason immediately frowned and said, "Wow, did you really make this yourself? It tastes kind of bland." I froze. I've always taken pride in my cooking, and I cook from scratch most of the time. I smiled awkwardly and said, "Yeah, I try to keep it simple sometimes." He continued to pick apart my meal, saying it lacked seasoning and that it reminded him of college cafeteria food. I was embarrassed and hurt, and Claire tried to brush it off, telling him to just eat it. But he kept making comments under his breath like, "I can't believe she actually calls this cooking." After dinner, I tried to keep the mood light, but Jason kept criticizing everything around my apartment. He said my furniture was old-fashioned and asked if I ever planned on redecorating. When I explained that I like cozy and practical over trendy, he scoffed. I didn't respond, hoping he would just leave me alone. But the next morning, he complained about breakfast too, saying the coffee was weak and that my grocery store choices were terrible. At that point, I quietly decided that maybe this stay wasn't going to work out. Later that day, I told Claire that I thought it would be better if Jason stayed at a hotel for the rest of the visit. I said that his attitude made me uncomfortable and that I didn't want him insulting me in my own home. Claire got really upset and accused me of overreacting. She said I was being rude to her fiancé and that I should just ignore him. I explained that ignoring someone repeatedly insulting me isn't really ignoring, it's being walked over, and I wasn't going to do that in my own space. Claire argued that I was jealous of her relationship and that I didn't like Jason because he made more money than I do and seemed more confident. I told her that wasn't the case at all. I don't care about his salary or confidence. It's about basic respect. She brought up past family dinners and claimed I'd criticized her friends and boyfriends before, which is true to an extent. I admitted that I have opinions, but I do not insult people in their own homes or pick apart everything they do. She said I was being petty and that this could ruin our relationship. Jason was completely oblivious to the confrontation. He was sulking in the corner, probably thinking he was in the right. Claire insisted that I apologize to him for hurting his feelings. I refused, saying I would apologize if he apologized for being rude in my house first. She ended up storming out with him and booking them a hotel for the remainder of their visit. Now, my parents are involved. They said I could have just grinned and bared it, and that family visits sometimes require compromise. They think I went too far by refusing to let him stay in my apartment. My friends are split. Some say I did the right thing standing up for myself, and others say I could have been more accommodating since he is my sister's fiancé. Since then, Claire hasn't spoken to me much. She has sent passive-aggressive texts like, "Hope your cooking improves by the next time I visit," and "Jason says hi." I've tried to reach out to smooth things over, but every attempt ends in her making me feel guilty. My question is, am I actually the asshole here? Did I overreact by refusing to let him stay? Or was it reasonable to stand my ground when someone was blatantly disrespecting me in my own home? I understand families sometimes need patience and compromise, but this felt different. He didn't just dislike my food, he mocked it repeatedly, and the entire visit became tense because of it. I also can't help but think that if I had caved, it would have set a precedent that it's okay for him to insult me whenever he visits. So Reddit, am I the asshole for prioritizing my comfort and boundaries over hosting my sister's fiancé? Character count, 6,556 if you want. I can craft 3 more alternative long stories in the same style, so you have a mini collection of high-engagement AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding and causing a huge family feud? I, 32M, have always been the responsible one in my family. I have a steady job in finance, own a modest house, and generally try to handle life without drama. My younger sister, let's call her Laura, 28F, has always been the opposite. She's smart and creative, but she's also impulsive with money and relies heavily on other people to bail her out. Growing up, this caused a lot of friction between us because my parents tried to shield her from consequences while I was expected to do everything by the book. Fast forward to last year. Laura got engaged to a guy I'll call Ben, 30M. Ben seems nice, but he's kind of flaky. He's had trouble keeping jobs, lives paycheck to paycheck, and doesn't have savings. The wedding planning started, and immediately my parents got involved in the budget discussions. They were suggesting that the wedding be a huge affair, and while I could see their point in wanting a memorable day for her, the cost they were quoting was astronomical, well into 6 figures. I offered to help by giving some financial advice. I suggested scaling back on certain expenses and focusing on what was meaningful rather than extravagant. Laura was dismissive and said, "This is my big day. You don't get to control it." Fine, I thought. I didn't want to be controlling. I just wanted to prevent her from going into debt that she would regret for years. Things escalated when my parents, probably realizing the costs were too much for just them, hinted that I should contribute. I have a solid career, but I also have a mortgage, student loans, and a kid on the way. I told them I wasn't in a position to fund a wedding, and even if I could, I didn't think it was my responsibility to do so. My reasoning was simple. Laura and Ben are adults. They should handle their own wedding. My parents argued that it's customary for siblings to contribute, especially if they have the means, but I didn't see this as a custom I was willing to follow blindly. Laura found out I wouldn't be contributing and confronted me in a very dramatic fashion. She accused me of being selfish, not supporting my family, and caring more about money than her happiness. Ben got involved too, saying I should step up and do the right thing. At this point, I was getting frustrated because I wasn't being asked to give advice or help plan. I was being asked to write a blank check. I refused again. The wedding day rolled around, and things were tense. Laura's wedding was still beautiful, but I was barely in attendance because she gave me the silent treatment the entire day. During the reception, she made a speech thanking everyone for their support and subtly said, "And to those who didn't support me financially, we hope you can still celebrate with us in spirit." That hit me hard because I felt publicly shamed in front of extended family I barely know. After the wedding, my parents called me. They were upset that I didn't help pay and said I was breaking the family apart over money. Laura stopped speaking to me entirely, and Ben seems to think I'm some villainous figure in his life now. I don't want to be the villain, but I also feel like I'm being forced to sacrifice my financial stability and peace of mind for a wedding that isn't mine. I do see where Laura might be hurt. She probably expected her older brother to be there for her in a tangible way. But at the same time, I'm not rich, I'm not debt-free, and I don't think it's fair for her and my parents to guilt me into funding a huge event. My parents are especially frustrating because they didn't consult me before making plans that involve my money. They just assumed I would step in. Recently, Laura sent me a long message saying she can't forgive me for not supporting her dreams and that she doesn't want me in her life until I understand family values. My parents are pushing me to apologize for being cold and unsupportive, but I don't know what apology they expect. I feel like apologizing for being responsible and setting boundaries is ridiculous. I'm trying to maintain my sanity here. I've suggested having a lunch with Laura to explain my perspective calmly, but she refuses. I don't want to burn bridges permanently, but I also can't justify putting myself in financial danger to make her wedding day perfect. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding even though it caused a huge family feud? Additional context. I have contributed to family events in the past within my means, including hosting parties and helping with small financial needs. Laura and Ben have both been in situations where they've asked friends to pay for travel or gifts, and they are fine with asking others for money. My parents have never directly offered to cover the wedding entirely, and it seems like they were counting on me to fill the gap. I'm still invited to major family holidays, but the atmosphere is tense, and I'm unsure how to repair the relationship. I'm open to compromise in ways that don't involve a financial burden, but my family seems uninterested in other options. I'm stuck between wanting to do the right thing in terms of family relationships and wanting to maintain my financial boundaries. I don't want to be the villain, but I also don't want to lose everything I've worked for just because my sister wants a lavish wedding. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she asked me to cover part of it. I'm 28 and my sister, 31, recently got engaged to her fiancé of 3 years. Our family has always been fairly close, but we've also had our share of tension. Our parents divorced when we were kids, and my sister and I never really got along growing up. Over the last few years, things have improved a lot, and I genuinely thought we were on good terms. I have a steady job in tech, and my sister works in retail, so our financial situations are quite different. About a month ago, she called me out of the blue and said she wanted to talk about her wedding plans. She's known for being very controlling and exacting, so I assumed she just wanted to discuss colors, themes, or something like that. When we spoke, she told me that the wedding is going to cost around $50,000, which is already an extreme amount for her and her fiancé, and then said something that completely floored me. She wanted me to contribute $10,000 toward it. She explained that our parents had already refused to contribute, and she didn't feel right asking them, so she wanted me to step up as her sibling. I asked her if she was serious, and she was. She said she wouldn't be offended if I said no, but then proceeded to guilt-trip me by saying that family should support family, and that it would really hurt her if I didn't help. I was shocked. $10,000 is a huge sum for me, and I honestly can't just give it to her without it affecting my own finances. I earn around $90,000 a year, but I also have rent, student loans, a car loan, and other bills. I told her I couldn't afford that amount and that it would put me in a difficult spot. She got upset and said, "You're choosing money over family." I thought we were closer than that. I tried to reason with her, saying that I want to be there and help in other ways, like helping with DIY decorations, invitations, or even planning, but she dismissed those offers, saying it wasn't the same as money and that it wouldn't count. A few days later, she sent me a detailed breakdown of the wedding costs and highlighted the gap she needed me to fill. She was really pushy about me paying $10,000 and said she would be disappointed if I didn't contribute. I started feeling cornered and honestly a little resentful because I've always tried to help her in ways that don't involve money, and this feels like a financial hostage situation. I finally decided to stand my ground. I told her that I could not, under any circumstances, provide $10,000 and that I felt hurt and pressured by her expectation. I added that I still want to celebrate with her and help in other ways, but the money is off the table. Her reaction was immediate and intense. She cried over the phone, accused me of being selfish, and said I don't love my family enough. Then she blocked me on social media and hasn't spoken to me in over 2 weeks. Our parents are frustrated because they don't want to take sides, but I know they agree with me privately. Some of our mutual friends have messaged me, and most are saying I shouldn't have to pay, but a few said I'm being uncaring and disrespectful for not helping my sister with her dream wedding. I feel incredibly guilty and torn. I want my sister to have a wonderful wedding, and I want to maintain our relationship, but I also feel like what she's asking is unreasonable and financially irresponsible. I've never had to deal with something like this before, and I can't stop replaying the conversation in my head. Part of me wonders if I'm wrong for refusing to help when my sister is clearly excited and probably stressed about planning the wedding. On the other hand, I know that giving $10,000 would be a huge financial strain and could hurt me long term. I guess I just don't know how to proceed. Should I try to offer her a smaller contribution, like $500 or $1,000, to show support without breaking my finances, or would that make things worse? Or am I justified in saying no and standing firm? I feel like whatever I do, I'm going to hurt her and potentially destroy our relationship, but I also don't want to compromise my financial security. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay $10,000 for my sister's wedding even though she asked me to? AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she asked me not to bring my child? So I, 34F, have a 6-year-old daughter, Lily. My best friend, Sophie, 33F, and I have known each other since college. We've been inseparable for most of our adult lives, through moves, marriages, breakups, and career changes. I have been a part of Sophie's life through thick and thin, and I considered her my chosen family. She's always been someone who talks openly about her preferences and boundaries, and I respect that. Recently, Sophie got engaged to her fiancé, Aaron, 36M, and the wedding planning began. From the start, she made it clear that the wedding would be a small, adult-only event due to venue limitations and her personal preference for a formal, child-free ceremony. I completely understood this and wasn't upset. My daughter can be a handful, and I know weddings are expensive and stressful, so I agreed without complaint. Things got tricky about a month ago. Sophie reached out to me directly and said she needed to make sure everyone attending understood it was child-free, and she explicitly asked that I not bring Lily, even if it meant arranging childcare on my own. I reassured her I wouldn't bring Lily, and that I could manage, but I had a lingering feeling of anxiety because of my family dynamics. My parents live in a different state, and they usually watch Lily when I need a break, but their availability is limited. Then, a few days later, Sophie sent another message. She was worried that some people would try to bend the rules and bring kids anyway. She asked if I could be a gatekeeper and subtly discourage anyone from trying to bring children. I agreed, thinking it was fair and that I could help out. The problem started when my parents suddenly said they couldn't watch Lily for the weekend of the wedding due to work conflicts. I panicked because I had already RSVP'd to Sophie and didn't want to cancel last minute. I tried to ask other friends and family to help, but most people were unavailable. I even considered taking Lily with me and sneaking her in, but the venue has strict rules, and I knew Sophie would be devastated if she found out. I felt trapped. I called Sophie to explain the situation and asked if there was any flexibility. Maybe I could attend for the ceremony and leave before the reception, or maybe she could allow me a short visit during photos. Sophie was firm. She said the guest list was final, the seating and catering were set, and her vision for the day included no children. She added that it was important for her that Lily not attend, even if it meant I didn't come. I felt blindsided and hurt because she wasn't offering any compromise and seemed to put her vision above our friendship. I tried to explain that this wasn't about my daughter misbehaving or being disruptive, but about real logistical problems, and that I didn't want to miss her wedding, but Sophie insisted. After the call, I felt torn. On one hand, I respected Sophie's wishes and knew it was her day. On the other, I couldn't figure out childcare, and I couldn't morally or practically attend the wedding and leave Lily alone or somewhere unsafe. I considered asking her to allow me to skip, but she framed it in a way that if I didn't attend, she would understand but would be sad and disappointed. I ended up making the extremely difficult decision to decline the invitation entirely. I sent Sophie a heartfelt message explaining that I loved her, that I didn't want to miss her wedding, and that I had tried everything possible to arrange childcare, but it wasn't working. I apologized for not being able to attend and emphasized that this was about logistics, not her or the wedding. Sophie replied with a short message saying she was really hurt, but understood. She also mentioned that our other mutual friends thought I was being difficult and that I should have made it work somehow. Since then, I've been hearing mixed things from our friends. Some say I was right to not force the situation and that it was unrealistic for me to juggle childcare without support. Others have hinted that I should have prioritized the wedding over the child, or that I let my daughter come between me and my best friend. I feel heartbroken because I've been friends with Sophie for over a decade, and now our relationship is strained. I keep replaying the situation in my head, wondering if I overreacted or if I could have handled it differently. I did not want to disrespect Sophie or ruin her day, but I also couldn't attend without risking my daughter's safety or well-being. The thought of her being angry or disappointed with me for prioritizing my child makes me feel guilty, but I honestly don't see how I could have attended under the circumstances. So, AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding because I couldn't figure out childcare for my daughter, despite Sophie explicitly asking for a child-free event and framing it as her vision for the day. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she deliberately excluded my partner. So, this is going to be a long one, and I'll try to include all the relevant details. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who has been planning her wedding for over a year. Up until recently, I was excited for her and supportive of her big day. However, things took a turn that has left me questioning whether I'm in the wrong here. My partner, Jake, 34M, and I have been together for 4 years. He's an incredible person, genuinely kind, and well-liked by my family. Emily has met him multiple times over the years and has always been polite, but she and Jake have never really gotten along. I wouldn't say there's an obvious reason. They just have clashing personalities and a few minor disagreements in the past. About 6 months ago, Emily started sending out save-the-date notifications and discussing her wedding guest list. I was thrilled to be involved and was even asked to help her choose dresses for the bridesmaids. Things seemed normal until one day, Emily casually mentioned that Jake wouldn't be invited. She framed it as though it was a small issue and said it was for the best because he might make her family uncomfortable, which honestly seemed ridiculous to me. I tried to talk to her about it. I said, "Emily, Jake is a huge part of my life. I can't imagine coming to your wedding without him." She basically told me that it was her wedding and she could invite whoever she wanted, and if I wanted to be there, I'd have to come alone. I tried explaining how hurtful and exclusionary that was, but she just kept saying that it wasn't personal, it was practical, and that everyone else was aware. Fast forward a few weeks, Emily got engaged officially, and the wedding planning intensified. I continued trying to compromise. I asked if maybe Jake could just be present for the ceremony, or attend the reception, or even just meet some of the key family members. Each time, she firmly rejected it. She said she wanted the day to be peaceful and didn't want him there to stir anything up. I reminded her that he's never caused drama at any family event, but she insisted this was different and that she knew what she was doing. The breaking point came when she sent the formal invitation. My name was there, but Jake's wasn't mentioned at all, not even as +1. I was furious and felt blindsided because all our previous conversations suggested maybe there was a compromise in the works. I called her and told her that if Jake couldn't come, I wouldn't either. I tried to reason with her, pointing out that family is about supporting each other, and excluding someone from my life on such a significant day was hurtful and unfair. She screamed at me on the phone, calling me selfish and saying I was making the day about me. She also told me that if I chose not to attend, I'd be cut off from the family. At this point, I felt like I had no choice. I love my sister, but I couldn't justify attending her wedding while being told my partner isn't welcome. I also didn't want to attend without him, because that would make me feel like I'm putting on a happy face while silently resenting her decision. I told her that I wouldn't come unless Jake was included. She responded by saying I was being dramatic and that she didn't want people who wouldn't respect her decisions at her wedding. I reached out to my parents for advice. They were sympathetic, but ultimately said that it was Emily's wedding and that I would have to accept her choices if I wanted to attend. My mom said she understood my feelings, but also suggested maybe going without Jake to keep the peace. I refused because I felt like that would set a precedent that I'm okay being sidelined in my own family's important moments. Since then, there's been a lot of tension. Emily has sent passive-aggressive messages about me being disappointed for no reason and has made comments about how I'm letting my relationship get in the way of family. Other family members have tried to mediate, suggesting I just attend the ceremony alone and maybe meet Jake later, but it feels like a compromise that doesn't respect my boundaries or my relationship. I want to emphasize that this isn't about me trying to control her wedding or her guest list arbitrarily. My concern is that she's intentionally excluding someone who is very important to me for reasons that don't make sense and haven't been clearly explained. I don't want to attend a celebration where I feel like I'm being told that part of my life doesn't matter. Some of my friends have told me that refusing to attend might make me seem petty, while others have said I'm justified for standing up for myself. I've been losing sleep over this and feeling guilty, but at the same time, I feel like attending would compromise my values and my relationship. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she won't invite my partner? This story comes in at roughly 6,500 characters, which fits your requested range. It follows the structure and tone of popular AITA stories: family conflict, a moral dilemma, clear stakes, and emotional tension, without breaking the requested guidelines. If you want, I can also create a second version that ramps up the drama even more, making it more likely to grab the viral Reddit AITA attention. This version would be around 6,800 to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to lie to my husband's family about a gift I received, even though it caused a huge family fight. I, 32F, have been married to my husband, Mark, 34M, for 6 years. We have 2 kids together, ages 4 and 6. Our families have always been relatively close, but over the years, tensions have grown, especially between me and Mark's side of the family. I usually try to keep the peace, but something happened recently that has left me questioning if I'm actually in the wrong here. So, here's the situation. Mark's parents, especially his mom, Linda, have a long-standing habit of buying gifts for holidays and birthdays that are extremely expensive and very obviously meant to impress. For example, for our daughter's last birthday, Linda gave her a gold-plated charm bracelet. Our daughter is 6. I don't think she needs jewelry that costs more than my first car. I've mentioned before that we appreciate the thought, but we don't want our kids growing up expecting luxury items, and I try to set boundaries about this stuff. Anyway, a few weeks ago, my younger sister, Sophie, who lives in another state, sent me a package with a handmade quilt she had been working on for months. It's absolutely gorgeous, really thoughtful, and I could tell she put a ton of time into it. I was overwhelmed with gratitude, and it really touched me because we're close and she rarely has money to spare. So this was a huge deal for her. I immediately told Mark how amazing it was, and he agreed. It was beautiful and very thoughtful. Here's where the problem started. Mark's mom somehow got wind that I had received a gift from my sister. She came over unannounced one evening, right when I was hanging the quilt in the kids' room, and she started grilling me about it. At first, it was subtle. "Oh, that's a nice quilt. How much did that cost?" I froze because I didn't want to lie, but Mark jumped in and said, "I don't know, it's handmade. Maybe $100. Linda didn't buy it. She clearly wanted me to overstate the cost. Then she leaned in and said, "Well, if it's not expensive, you should tell your sister to, I don't know, be more generous next time. Gifts should reflect appreciation. You wouldn't want to embarrass her, would you?" I was stunned. I've never in my life measured a gift's worth by the price tag, and I certainly don't want my sister to feel pressure to spend money she doesn't have. I told Linda firmly, "It's perfect. I don't care about the cost." She made it with love, and that's what matters. She scoffed and went on about how my family doesn't understand real gift etiquette, and that I should at least lie and tell her it was expensive. I told her no, and that was when things escalated. She started ranting about how I'm ungrateful, how I need to learn manners, and how I'm teaching her grandchildren the wrong values. Mark, surprisingly, didn't defend me much. He tried to stay neutral, but kept saying things like, maybe we could just tell her it was expensive to avoid conflict. I said I wouldn't lie, and he eventually gave up on trying to mediate. The next day, Linda sent multiple passive-aggressive texts to Mark saying that I'm disrespectful, that I shame gifts from family, and that I don't know how to appreciate real generosity. I got one too, telling me that if I don't start pretending gifts are worth more than they are, I shouldn't expect to be treated well at family events. Mark was upset, but he told me to just smooth things over by calling his mom and telling her the quilt is very valuable and important to me. I told him I wouldn't do that. I honestly feel like lying about the value of a gift from my sister is not only dishonest, but also deeply disrespectful to her effort and intentions. Mark said he understands my reasoning, but he's worried about the fallout with his parents. Last weekend, we hosted a small family gathering for our son's birthday. Linda made a huge scene when she realized I hadn't changed my stance. She loudly commented in front of the guests that my sister must be very poor if that quilt was all she could give, and suggested that I should be more gracious and pretend it's worth more. I stood my ground, calmly explaining that the thought and effort matter far more than the cost, and that I won't lie about it. Some guests seemed impressed, but others were awkward, and I could tell it embarrassed Mark. After everyone left, Mark's parents left in silence, and Mark said he's worried that this could damage relationships permanently. He asked me again to just say it was more expensive so we can avoid unnecessary drama, but I refused. So now, the family is upset with me. Mark is frustrated that his parents are upset, and I feel like I did the right thing by being honest and defending my sister's gift. My parents and siblings are proud, saying I set healthy boundaries. I do understand that lying could have made the family dynamic smoother, but I really feel like it would be morally wrong to do so. AITA for refusing to lie about the quilt's value, even though it caused a huge argument with Mark's family. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.